Well, good morning again. This is Dr. Bill Williams. We're in for a treat today on the Influencers Podcast, streaming live from Atlanta, Georgia. We have another Atlanta native here, Shawnta Hooks. I want to bring her in right now to say hello to you guys in the Influencer Podcast audience. Hello, Shawnta. How you doing?
Thank you for having me here today.
Let's see if I make sure you're in. Are you there? There.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are. So good to have you in. And
Thank
we're ready to go, having a good time today. So let's get started with where you were, who you were surrounded by, what caused you to create this mindful culture creators that you run.
Yeah, and again, thank you for having me here today. This company that I've created, is really a journey into mindfulness for myself. And as you can see with the title, I teach mindfulness. But the journey to doing that has been very interesting. So I am also a CPA. I started my career here in Atlanta, working with PricewaterhouseCoopers, doing external audit. And, went through, just sort of that traditional corporate path. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. And so, being from a blue collar city, we were really pushed to, sort of explore a different type of lifestyle in corporate America. And I spent 20 years, working in audit, compliance, governance, and a variety of different tracks. And throughout that process, I was never a meditator. I didn't understand meditation. I didn't really believe in it. I sort of saw it as, this sort of frivolous thing that is not real, despite the fact that my father was a meditator. It just wasn't something he taught me. So, life goes on. And in around 2019, things just started to get more difficult. I had a son, he was a toddler at the time. My relationship with his father was ending. I was in a new role, a new job, VP of transformation, where I was responsible for actually implementing automation for manual processes. And I was just stressed beyond my max. And was really looking for something, to sort of help me, and meditation kept popping up. And then I just saw the video. I saw the thing that resonated with me, that really explained it in the most simplistic way possible. It gave me true guidance, such as setting a timer. And I just started to do it. And I incorporated it into my everyday life just in time for the pandemic to hit in 2020. And during the pandemic, I started to tell my story. I started to tell, how this academic nerd, sort of compliance, logical thinking professional became an avid meditator. And I created a mindfulness community at my employer that started with 5 employees, and within, around 18 months grew to 500 employees. And, I had delivered, delivered talks and motivational talks and instructional workshops to over 5,000 global employees. And I thought to myself one day, I could do this. I don't have to just do this here. I do want everyone to understand the power of adopting a mindful lifestyle and the power of incorporating meditation, not just into your daily life, but into your lifestyle, into the way that you live your life. I saw that as life changing. I saw how it was changing the lives of those that I told this story to. And so that was the inception and the path for the creation of Mindful Culture Creators. There you go.
I was gone for a minute. I'm glad I came back. I was saying to the audience, I know that it took a lot of guts to go and leave corporate America and go out on your own and to do things that were totally a different track, a career track. So there must have been some great story that led you to leave corporate America that, it didn't serve what you needed. It wasn't what you wanted. And you then got into teaching the mindfulness to so many. What was that one point that led you to create this impactful theory of how to rest the mind and be at peace?
Yeah. No, I love that question. And there was a catalyst. And I am currently, I'll start this by saying I'm currently on a sabbatical from my corporate employer. And the catalyst for that sabbatical was actually experiencing what I guess you could consider a workplace trauma. So, it was a normal day. I was scheduled to have a one-on-one with my manager. And in the middle of that one-on-one on a Zoom call similar to this, he actually passed away suddenly. And it was one of those events where, when you experience something like that, you go into panic mode, right? You see someone that is in distress, because that's essentially what we're talking about here. Someone is in distress and you don't really know how to help them. And so the focus and the ability to think clearly and to be able to not just be in that stuck in that, state of fight or flight, but to actually do something. I just remember it was like everything just sort of slowed down. And although I was really panicked and I'm watching this on video, I'm thinking, okay, I need to alert someone, but I don't know who or how. And I just literally see at the bottom of my screen his assistant's name. And so I said, oh, I can call her. And so I called her. She picked up the phone. She immediately called his wife. And then that set off the series of events to where, unfortunately, he did not make it. He passed away. And this wasn't just my manager. He was my mentor. He was my biggest supporter. I was doing this mindfulness work simultaneously while managing a team of 10 employees, leading process surveillance for a sales organization, at a VP level. Like I had a very big job. And in addition to that, I was managing this mindfulness community internally and managing my external activities. And he was so supportive. And he was such a, just such a brilliant person and an amazing role model and mentor. And so to lose him in that way was absolutely a catalyst. I needed time. Luckily, I work for an amazing company that, really allowed me to really prioritize my mental health. And so I started with taking 2 months off to really just figure out, like, what do I do, in this space? And then I decided to take the sabbatical to really, prioritize my mental health, prioritize the things that matter to me. I mean, life can literally be gone in a second. And not only is that a cliche statement, it's something I got to witness firsthand. And so everything in me said, this is the time to, just do what it is you want to do, like whatever that means, help people, live life, travel, do that. And so I'm on sabbatical for a year, figuring that part of life out, running my business, having conversations like this, and doing my part to fulfill my purpose and passion in the most authentic way possible, because I know that my mentor and manager would be really proud to see me doing life like that.
Wow, what a story. And I could just see it as you were just explaining it. I could just see it for real. So I know a lot of people feel the same way. The trauma was terrific.
Yeah.
Now, if you go about corporate training and you work in your own company, Mindful Culture Creators, what have you learned are the top 3 reasons that people fail?
The top 3 reasons that people fail. One, the very first reason that people fail is because they're not aware of what they're thinking, right? The ability to be in the present moment. And I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of thought leaders in the space of neuroscience, in the space of spirituality, in the space of business leadership and entrepreneurship. And there's this thread that goes through each of those different sort of disciplines of thinking. And every single one of those disciplines prioritizes the need to be present. Because when you're not present, your mind, you run a risk, right? I love talking about this in risk management terms, because that's the background that I have. The risk is that you will start to go down a pattern of negative thinking that leads you away from your goal. And that is what causes you to fail. And not only is that what causes you to fail, so like number one is not being in the present moment. Number 2 is not prioritizing your overall health, right? In this society, we have gotten so ingrained in hyper-consumerism and competition and winning and, climbing the corporate ladder and being, it's not enough to be a millionaire anymore, right? Now we need to be billionaires and we need to, do all these things. And it's taking us away from our physical health, right? The things like eat right, get in nature, ground, getting back to some basics. And again, oftentimes it's difficult to do those things if your mind is distracted. So, really prioritizing physical health. And then thirdly, the reason that people fail is because they lose sight of gratitude. They lose sight of the importance that gratitude plays neurologically, with helping us get back in the present moment. Gratitude is sort of like the extra credit for the test in life, or the sprinkles on top of the cake that allows you to get out, to get out of that space that is not aligned with your goal. Right. And so people, when they don't practice that, they again run that risk of failure.
Gratitude is going to come up at the end of our show today. And so you got our hint that we're going to be talking about that already.
Lovely.
Let's go through the lightning round where we talk about what motivates you internally.
I have a 5-year-old son, and he is my biggest motivation. He is another story and catalyst in how I kind of got to this mindful lifestyle. And he is just the best versions of both myself and his father. And it's just beautiful to see and to know that he actually talks about meditation, and he talks about spirituality. He talks about these big things. It's beautiful. He's my motivation.
Excellent. What's your company motto?
My company motto is humanizing work to maximize potential.
Humanizing work to maximize potential. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had one purpose that I stated once that was bringing God into the workplace.
Yeah.
The godly principles, treat people right and do the right thing at the right time for the right reason.
Yep. Yeah.
Now, what about success strategies? Do you have 3 that you can identify?
3 success strategies that I have for my personal life and what I share with others is to really be mindful how you start your day. It seems so cliche because people say it so often, but it's probably one of the most transformational things that I've tapped into with just being intentional. And it's allowed me to accelerate success. And 2 is definitely practicing meditation. I think we take for granted the role that meditation and mindfulness play in the success of our individual. Like the way I like to explain it is that we're already doing it, right? Those moments when we are at our best, and all of us have had that moment where we're at our best, is because we were in the present moment. And so when you make that an intentional habit, you tend to actually see results that are in alignment with that habit. So developing meditation practices that start, really basic, 5 minutes, that can lead to, perhaps doing a 20-minute meditation once a week is life-changing and transformational. And then 3rd, a secret to success is doing things that, tapping in, not just doing things that you love, but really thinking back to when you were a child, thinking back to when you were a child or a teenager, and you actually still had the eyes of curiosity as it relates to life. And you did things not for motivation of money and not for motivation of power, but simply because you enjoyed it. When you start doing more of those things, and this is especially for those people that really, if someone were to ask them, what is your passion? What is your purpose? They would have no clue how to answer that question. Or maybe the person that kind of knows what their purpose and passion is, but they don't really know how to get started. Well, the way you get started is doing the things that you love to do. And so for me, I know in the pandemic, because a lot of this happened to me in the pandemic, I remembered that I used to love to write, and that I used to love to just sit and listen to music, nothing else, just me and my radio, and, play songs on repeat and really dig into the lyrics. And so I started to do that again. And a lot of the way I teach, because I teach in corporate spaces, I teach corporate people how to be more mindful so that, they can achieve their strategies at work. A lot of my practices involve music. They involve things from my childhood. They involve my culture coming from Detroit. And so it allows me to share a part of myself, and it inspires others to think back to, oh yeah, I did used to like doing this. And that leads you down this path of success.
I like it. It's good. Well, tell us why somebody should buy from you or connect with you as the head of the Mindful Creators.
Yeah, mindfulness is a topic that has definitely gotten mainstream, even slightly before the pandemic, but especially in the pandemic. And so a lot of organizations are out there that teach, organizations and solopreneurs like myself, that teach people how to meditate, that teach, organizations how to be more mindful. I think the thing that separates me from others in this space is that I really bring my personal story to everything that I do. I am a personal believer that, all of the challenges that we experience in life are meant to be used as a catalyst for transformation. And the way that I allow myself to activate that principle is through telling my stories. And I have lots of stories. Like, sometimes I sit back and think like, I can't believe these things happen to me, and that I'm able to tell them without breaking down, without losing control of myself. And I do it in a way that, from the feedback that I get from my clients, is that it's refreshing. It feels, they can relate, right? Especially in the corporate space, they can relate to feeling, lack of motivation, and feeling, like they didn't belong. And because I bring those very vulnerable stories, they see themselves, and then that entices them to actually do the work in their own personal life.
I can understand how you would be a good storyteller, and I think that you did hit a key point there, that you can tell a story in a lively way. So tell us who your ideal client is.
Yeah, I really have been thinking about this question a lot, and so I'm glad you asked it. My ideal client is the person that is overwhelmed with life right now. They feel overwhelmed. They maybe love what they're doing, right? It's not a struggle of whether or not they're connected to the work that they do or to the personal life that they live, but they feel overwhelmed. They feel distracted. They feel a high level of stress, and this crosses genders. Although I tend to work more with women, and that is demographically, more women tend to actually purchase products and services within the mindfulness and wellness space. But I have a interesting niche with men. I've actually done a lot of work with men's groups and men's circles. And as a matter of fact, the day that my manager passed away, I was leaving a meeting that was focused on talking about mental health for Black men and the role that mindfulness can play in that conversation. I was leading a meeting to talk about that, going into a meeting where my manager passed away. And so, my ideal client is the person that, lives a life that, that is filled with ups and downs, and they need some help with adopting a tool that can sort of navigate those ups and downs in a way that, actually helps them solve their problems in their lives, in their professional lives and their personal lives.
And is there a particular way that you look to find these ideal clients?
It's been primarily word of mouth. Even with the growing of the mindfulness group and program that I created internally at my employer, it all grew through word of mouth. And I took that same approach, that same grassroots approach to my company, Mindful Culture Creators, with really just sharing my story, putting myself out there, hosting lives. And because I have, I was already sort of developing a network of people that were interested in what I had to say. I may not have a ton of followers, but when I host events, I usually get at least 60 people that will show up to a virtual event, which is not always the case, today in this space of, sort of virtual fatigue. And so people show up. And that leads to word of mouth. It leads to, hey, I'd love to talk more. I'm starting to get more strategic with using social media and developing a strategy behind how I want to actually invest in social media marketing and SEO marketing. But right now I'm continuing to really just develop this grassroots effort community. I'm going to be relaunching the community next month in March, and, really leveraging that to build awareness and engagement, and, really hone in on this really unique product. I call it a learning retreat, which is a way of thinking about this. It's not just a workshop. This is a place for you to learn, to retreat, and to connect in community. And so spreading that awareness and engagement in a grassroots sort of way has been extremely effective for me.
So your product is a retreat.
Yeah.
It's what else? What else do you have to offer?
Yeah, I'm a keynote speaker. And so I offer speaking services to conference spaces, as well as to, small group sessions. Another service that I offer in the speaking space is mindful minutes. So, you think about when we have large conferences and seminars, sometimes we'll bring in someone to sort of pep the crowd up. One thing that I don't experience enough is someone to actually center the crowd so that they can actually be focused. And so I've done a number of experiences like that, which is really unique to this reemerging conference space. And then, that's my speaking business. from a learning and development perspective, I have a program called On and Off the Pillow that is a 90-day program where organizations hire me to offer live 1-hour sessions each month, as well as having access to on-demand content, to my community, to my pre-recorded mindfulness practices. And, it allows me to, I do one-time workshops, but I really like to get in an organization for at least a 90-day period so that they can experience the benefits away from it being a one-time event. Because we as humans, we don't learn that way. We don't learn from taking one class and then actually adopting transformation in our life. We learn from consistency, from discipline, and from repeat processes. And so that has been a true joy to be able to implement that at organizations and see the positive fruits of that sort of innovative way of approaching learning and retreating.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you have a lot of weapons in your armamentarium so that you can accomplish a lot and meet the needs of the corporation, not just give your one shot and you hit or miss. That sounds good.
Right.
Tell me about how do you crush your competition? Is it through your versatility?
Yeah, the competition in this space, it feels, massive because it's still so micro. So it feels like there's a lot of small players. And the perspective that I have on competition is that I choose to not crush them. I choose to identify, various avenues to either collaborate, understand, use from a data perspective, and to, just to learn, to see how others are actually offering these services, because I truly believe that mindfulness and meditation, we are on the cusp of a transformation in society. Meaning there was a time where we did not know that we needed to drink water every single day, that we needed to drink 8 glasses of water every single day. And now we do. And we are on a cusp of, right now, about 14% of Americans have reported that they actually have tried meditation. Whereas, something more routine like brushing your teeth, 98, this you're a dentist, 98% of Americans brush their teeth. Right. And so there will be a time where 98% of Americans meditate. And so in order for that to happen, it needs to be a lot of us out here talking about meditation. So I just want to focus on how can I, get my champions, get the people that understand my voice. I try to be as authentic as I possibly can. And those that are invited and choose to come, please come. And I will also share other resources and other people that are in this space that are selling this in a slightly different way, because we won't get to that 98%, like we brush our teeth at a 98% rate. We won't get to that by having one company that right. We need to all do this as a collective.
So get the word out is important, and online platforms are very important part of that. How do you look at the platforms available, and do you rely on any specific ones?
Yeah, the one that I feel the most home at is actually YouTube. And I haven't been leveraging it as much because I've chosen Instagram as the primary sort of video format. But I will be relaunching my YouTube format really soon, because what I find is that YouTube is the space where people you disrupt that myth that people only want to digest 3 minutes of content, right? And the way I speak, I'm a storyteller. Right. And I can do short form content and I can do, short bite-sized pieces, but I feel much more at home and much more natural when I can just speak and do things like this, and not have to feel like I have to be condensed to a 3-second bite. So Instagram is where I sort of, push out a lot of content, as well as LinkedIn, because I am a B2B business to business service. So I leverage LinkedIn a lot. I leverage Instagram a lot. And I can't wait to, really get more established as a YouTube presence. TikTok, I do plan on. I haven't, tapped into TikTok yet. I understand its power, but as a mental health, as a person that operates in the mental health space, I have a lot of concerns about all of these platforms, but especially TikTok. But I also understand the duality, right? And I understand that it offers value. And so I will create a strategy to be able to utilize TikTok in a way that honors my authenticity, but still respects, the way that I know we need to operate, as humans to live more fulfilled lives, and it's less social media.
Well, the value that each one holds is dependent. I've heard a lot of speakers in the space talk about the audience. Each platform carries a different avatar, a different audience. And so if you understand your platform's audience, then you put your platform out, your message out on the platform specifically to meet certain audiences. So it is wise to have multiple platforms. Let's talk about five-star client experience and tell us, Shawnta, how do you actually create that five-star experience?
I really focus on identifying the issues that the client is facing, because my platform is very simple. You tell me your problem and I can tell you how mindfulness is the solution. And so the good thing is that a lot of us are having similar problems, right? We're having problems with burnout. We're having in the corporate space. And I kind of approach this from a personal individual, because I do offer some individual personal services as well. But for the corporate space, the problems are kind of the same, right? You know, burnout, people don't necessarily feel a sense of belonging. People are, really feeling distracted, right? And as we continue to incorporate more technology into the way we work, the way we communicate with customers, that distraction rate grows as well. And so I really try to focus on, really having one-on-one time with my clients to understand their problems, really understand. I have like a whole questionnaire that I ask them, and it's a really cool process, because it really gives them space to vent, and it gives them even the client intake process is a very healing experience for the person that is organizing this event for their organization. And so we have this really connected conversation. And then I customize my learning platform to ensure that I'm addressing those needs. And I identify tools and practices that we can do live, because every session I do includes a live practice. I make sure that the practice matches, I like to say it's a preventative or detective control to the risk, right? The risk being distraction. So what can we do to prevent or detect the distraction? Here's the mindfulness practice that goes with that.
Yes, it sounds to me excellent, and that you actually have a workshop format for many of your talks.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What are you grateful for today?
I am grateful that spring is in the air. It's a lovely day here in Atlanta, Georgia. Spring is my favorite season. I got out this morning in nature and went for a walk before I visited my chiropractor. And I can just feel like I can hear the birds chirping. I can smell the way the air smells differently. And to experience that this morning brought a huge sense of gratitude. And it reminds me that growth, that, we're exiting the phase of life that is, sort of stop and rest. And we're exiting or entering the phase of life that relates to growth, which is exciting.
Yeah, for those who are not familiar with it, springtime in Atlanta, it starts in February with the blooms of the cherry trees.
Yes.
And then along comes the peach trees, the dogwoods, the azaleas. So we have a continual floral display from February on. So it's beautiful. Shawnta, how do you start your day?
I start my day with, I'm really into Qigong, which is a form of Tai Chi. I started practicing Qigong, again, before the pandemic. That was a very major catalyst. And I just found a YouTube channel. I found a cool YouTube channel that this lady offers classes, and they're about 15 minutes, usually sometimes less than that. And I have one that is sort of my morning go-to, and it allows me to stretch. It allows me to tap into sort of Chinese philosophies of the body and pressure points. It's so many things in one. It's movement, it's meditation, it's educational because of the way she explains it. And so I do that every morning. I try to do a seated practice every morning as well, but I always do either one, either a seated practice or a movement practice every single day before I start my day.
So let me ask you this. What's your plan to achieve your goal to make mindful culture creators a big success?
My plan is to, and I think I saw the word on the screen at one point, was ambassador, is to really, I believe in the influencer model, and I think maybe even a better word for it is an impact model, because impact is compounding. You impact one person and they can't wait to tell somebody else. And so my strategy is to be impactful, and to know that when I am impactful, others will help me to spread that season of impact. And that is how I'm going to grow, and that includes collaboration. I collaborate with a lot of other thought leaders in spaces of just sort of corporate strategy, growth mindset, DE&I, social justice. I'm extremely passionate in, and I love to talk, and I'm familiar with all these topics, but I don't have to be the expert in everything. I can collaborate with people that are passionate about certain niches, and we do, conversations like this. As a matter of fact, I'm hosting one on Friday in honor of Black History Month, focusing on the scarcity mentality within the Black community as it relates to money matters. And so we collaborated together to create this workshop, and we've sold it to organizations as well as we're offering it up for free, just in honor of Black History Month as we close it out. And so really growing through collaboration, growing through, impact, and really just being intentional about my strategy, staying close to my voice, my authenticity, not feeling like I have to fall for every shiny object and every new way that someone is approaching, helping others understand mindfulness, understanding my gift, and staying in that lane as long as I need to.
I gotcha. Sounds like a winner to me. So you do have challenges, I'm sure. How do you overcome those and get past them to the next thing?
Oh yeah, lots of challenges. This is it's the last 6 months has felt like the most intense roller coaster. In addition to, losing my manager, as I mentioned, I sold my house, I moved, I downsized, I, took a sabbatical, like it's all these things. And what I do, I have a mantra, and I teach this in one of my workshops. I call it catch, convert, create. And so first step, you have to notice. So, it requires you to be aware of your thoughts. But, when you sort of gotten used to being aware of your thoughts, the idea is to catch your negative thoughts, right? And then convert them. And I even see sometimes I'll visualize sort of catching lightning bugs, in a jar. You catch them and then you look at them, right? You observe your thoughts. You see like, no, I don't really believe this, because just because you think a thought doesn't mean you have to believe it. So I make that decision. Nope, don't want to believe that. And then I convert it to a new thought. And then I create life, take action, move, create based on the new thought. And so that I'm very process oriented. That's, based on my career and my path. I think in process and in steps. And so I literally say that to myself when I feel like the circumstances of life are sending me down a negative thought path. I say, let's do the 3 C's. Catch, convert, create, catch, convert, create. And it never steers me wrong.
I like the processes that you put together, the thought process, because strategic planning leads to success.
Right.
Talk about paid digital media. Have you ever used that in your roles for growth of your company?
I haven't actually tapped into paid digital media yet. Everything has been grassroots and word of mouth for me thus far. But it is definitely in my plan, and I'm very, very close. As a matter of fact, it's an investment that I'll be making within the next 3 months. And I have an idea of where I want to target, because as we talked about earlier, really understanding the persona of each of these places is really, really important. And how that ties to my target market. I'm a very strategic and thoughtful person. So I want to make sure that I put some real thought, use data to identify where I want to go with investment dollars into paid media. But, a lot of my media has also been podcasts, thinking about, earned media as well, I guess is the right way to phrase that. And so that's another avenue that I really want to continue to explore, because it allows me to do this, to just talk about myself in a relaxed setting, talk about my services, but most importantly, talk about the problems of my customers, because that is such a relatable conversation right now.
Excellent. And you say you don't have a lot of experience using the paid media, so the percentage might not be something that you have experience with yet, but corporate people talk about anywhere from 5 to 10%, and even up for some products that have low overhead, 25 to 30% of their revenue going toward paid digital media. And one of the things that Influencer Podcast and our company brings to the mix might be interesting to those listening in the audience, is that we can bring paid revenues, paid expenses for the revenue that you want to create. We can bring it down by up to 90% over the typical expenditures. So there's a lot of things out there that are available that commonly people are not aware of, to reduce how much they spend on Facebook and LinkedIn and Google Ads. You don't have to go to the same source to get the same result.
Right.
So that's interesting as people understand that. and we'll be glad to explain that more in the future. Let's look at you as a 20-year-old, and you're going to give yourself advice, Shawnta. What would you say to that 20-year-old Shawnta just getting into the business world?
That 20-year-old Shawnta, she was starting her career as a public accountant for PwC. Had to remember where I was then. And the thing that she struggled with was really believing in her greatness. I not to sound arrogant, but, I grew up going to gifted schools. I've always excelled academically. I've worked for some of the top organizations. I was able to accelerate my career really early, 40 under 40. But because of where I come from, I come from an environment that really sort of over prioritizes humility to a point where it can cause you to doubt yourself. It can cause you to have imposter syndrome. And I didn't understand that, right? As a 20-year-old, I didn't understand that nuance. I didn't understand the role of environment and how that was really, sort of allowing me to be willing to be in the background, to really, avoid the spotlight, avoid anything too extreme. And it wasn't until I really gave that persona up, and allowed myself to just be my authentic self, be who I am, as authentic as Detroit, as everything that I am, bring that as much as I can. That's when all the doors started opening. That's when the career took off. That's when, everything. So it's like learning that sooner, telling my 20-year-old self that sooner, that, certainly be humble and certainly be kind and certainly practice humility, but never allow those words to overinflate into a space where you are losing your authenticity and losing your ability to stand out when it's necessary for you to stand out.
Well, I could definitely see that you came through with flying colors, gaining an MBA, a CPA, being a public speaker, going off on your own. Those are things that set people apart from the average. And Shawnta, you're certainly not average. And we are enjoying having you on Influencers Podcast. So our audience wants to know, why is being impactful to the community important to you?
Oh, I love that question. And I think I kind of hinted on it earlier. Impact is compounding, right? If I impact you, right? And I'm not just talking about someone feeling, I'm talking impact has a very unique definition. And it's sort of like the butterfly impact. When you impact someone, nothing is the same. And I think if we thought about it like that, if we really thought about the interconnected, and I sometimes I say words like this and I laugh, because when people said 4 years ago, before I became, really understanding these concepts, if I heard someone say the interconnectedness of everything, I would just kind of roll my eyes, like, what does that even mean? But I really implore people to get, people that are sort of dissenters to some of this language that feels new agey and woo-woo and all these other words that we want to call things that we just don't understand. I really implore you to explore and get curious about what that truly means. Because when you start to understand that, the way that you understand water to be wet, the interconnectedness of everything, it explains the importance of impact. And when you understand it from that perspective, you can't help but want to do it, because that is literally how we will change this world.
I got you. Water is wet, and the good thing is it can exist in 3 forms in the same planet.
Right.
We can have that water vapor, that ice, as long as the water, but we need the water to survive, right? That's what we live on. That's what 97% of our bodies are made of, and we need it every day. Looking at your life, when you're said and done with all your work, what do you want to be remembered for, Shawnta?
I want to be remembered for being someone that made people feel good. My father is deceased. He's a huge part of my story. I've told his story a million times at this point. He was an incredible man, and unfortunately, he suffered a lot. He spent the last 14 years of his life paraplegic. He was in a terrible accident that rendered him to a hospital bed for 14 years of his life. And eventually he lost his ability to eat, speak, walk, move. And he eventually passed away, and lots of people came to his funeral, and it was a beautiful, beautiful celebration of his life. And people to this day always talk about just how good he made them feel. And if I could leave this earth, and I have a couple people in my life that are like that. My mentor that passed away and my great grandmother, Roxy Smith. If I could leave a fraction of that type of impact, job well done.
I think that would be a great memory to pass on as a legacy. Tell us about how we can support you, what links to your website or whatever, your podcast.
Yeah, my website is mindfulculturecreators.com, and I can be reached on all social media platforms, LinkedIn, Shawnta Hooks, as well as Instagram, Shawnta the Speaker, and YouTube. My YouTube channel is Mindful Culture Creators, and I do have some videos on there, so you can kind of get a flavor for my style. But my website, has a plethora of information about how you can contact me if you would like to bring a workshop, or as I like to call them, a learning retreat to your organization. Please reach out. And then in the meantime, I'll send you a link. I'm not sure how we can disseminate it. If you're interested in joining my free community, so that you can, see some of the live sessions that I often host, usually about once or twice a month, I can, provide a link to you to enter that information and sign up for those experiences.
Well, thank you. That's good. And I appreciate that. That's mindfulculturecreators.com. And I hope all of our audience will take advantage and go see exactly what's available on the website. Shawnta, what would you say about your experience on Influencers Podcast today?
This has been incredible. I really appreciate the platform and the ability to, share a little bit of light in the world that can feel very dark in many cases. And I appreciate, what you're doing to ensure that we have, the light and the dark exist, right? They're here. We can't eliminate it, but we need people like you and like myself to remind people of the truth that the light is always there as well.
Well, I want to give you the final word and let you.
Yeah, the final word that I'll leave with everyone is to what I like to call honor the pause. Between a thought and an action is a pause. And oftentimes we skip that pause and we want to go straight to the action. But it's really important that we honor the pause so that we can decide whether or not the action is the action that is in alignment with our life goals and what we want for ourselves.
Wonderful, Shawnta. Excellent thought, excellent final words. And appreciate that you've been on the Influencers Podcast. I can see that you are truly an influencer in your own right for many years. And I'm glad to see you're taking this out on the road on your own with Mindful Culture Creators. I think it'll be a success. I want to encourage all of our audience to check in, learn more about Shawnta and what she's doing, and look for her in the future as one of the spokespersons of what's coming up and what's going on in America and around the world. Okay, thank you. We're going to close the Influencers Podcast off today with Shawnta, and I want to thank her for being here, and thank you and the audience for being with us on the Influencers Podcast, streaming live from Atlanta, Georgia.
Thank you.
Take care.